To say that I enjoy strategy games would be giving me the smallest slice of the pizza. I not only adore strategy games, I live and breathe them no matter their form. Whether it be the brutally difficult XCOM games, the fast-paced modern era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, and the lovable Fire Emblem series, you can always count on me when it comes to turn-based strategy. So you can imagine how excited I was when I heard an indie developer was making a game inspired by the GBA Fire Emblem style, with a sequel to Dark Deity. I played the first one, and while I could see the potential, it had many rough corners. And with its sequel here, I was happy to see if Dark Deity 2 took the criticism to heart, or took it personal. Dark Deity 2 is a fantastic sequel that improves on nearly every aspect of the original. In fact, it invalidates the first game in the best way possible. Everything from combat to story to overall polish even has been enhanced, letting everyone know that it's here to make a name for itself. It's a joyful indie love letter to the strategy RPG genre that does its all to win over your heart. The creator seems hell-bent on bringing back the golden age of strategy games as they made advertising on TikTok before the game's release. As a personal lover of this genre, I would be down to see more of these games flourish. It's now time to see if Dark Deity 2 brings in that new age, or is just another one for the pile to be forgotten. When it comes to technical performance, Dark Deity 2 runs flawlessly. Throughout my playthrough, I encountered no crashes, no major bugs, and no noticeable performance hiccups. A game gets huge kudos from me when it launches in such a stable state. The game offers options for both controller and keyboard setups, allowing players to choose their preferred method of play. The controls are responsive and well mapped, making it easy to navigate menus and execute actions on the battlefield. Whatever you're using a controller or a keyboard and mouse, the game feels intuitive and smooth. In fact, everything is very straightforward and to the point. While the options menu is somewhat limited, it does cover most of the essential bases, though more customization and settings would be welcome, such as a borderless option, which is oddly missing but not ultra essential. The smooth sailing of the performance, stability, and controls now allows the game design, gameplay, and content to be front and center. Gameplay and content in a strategy RPG can be life or death for the experience personally. It's a balancing act, but if the game is able to stay familiar to the player while adding new ingredients, then it can feel satisfying to complete, let alone unlock or experiment with. Dark Deity 2 in this regard surprised me for the most part. It shoots to refine well-known and beloved aspects of the genre rather than make its own mark, which can be a dual-edged sword once again. While it sticks to what's proven, it abandons the ability to leave its own mark on the genre, with little to no room for innovation. Content available in Dark Deity 2 is serviceable, but definitely could use more. Like the lack of side quests that could offer lore, character backstory, and/or additional items feels head-scratching to say the least. Regardless, during mission chapters there are side objectives to be completed, which on completion offer gold, gems, weapon relics, elixirs, and many other goodies that are well worth your time to go after. I made sure to always keep them in mind while playing through a chapter, as I didn't want to miss out on them. After playing through a few campaign chapters, you'll unlock training maps, and after a few more, you'll unlock specific challenge maps. These do their job exactly how you would expect them, but having them here allows for the other systems to somewhat flourish. The challenge maps in particular are a welcome surprise, often restricting the units you can bring, putting a severe turn limit, and making sure you're vastly outnumbered. It's a good addition, but the only selection with actual meat on its bones are the story missions, which I will discuss later. The game offers substantial customization for how you wish to play the game. You can change how level ups are done, and even choose to implement a turn limitation for the campaign chapters. Difficulty, however, is a bit misleading, and it's here that Dark Deity 2 disappointed me a tad and makes its first misstep. It has 4 options, but really only has 3 since the hero difficulty is way too easily personally. As such, I would imagine the mortal difficulty to be outright mindless, so completely disregard it. Even then, the deity difficulty rarely pushed me, and more times than not I had plenty of elbow room in most chapters. The combat in Dark Deity 2 is dynamic and customizable to whatever playstyle you see fit. Between different classes, modifiers to unit abilities, and weapon enchantments, there's a lot to experiment with. Weapon enchanting can vary from simple boosts to stats to adding some really crazy effects to both yourself and the enemy. As for unit abilities, they are fun and distinct while giving a handful of tools on the battlefield. From simple stuff like dealing extra damage, healing allies, to more interactive abilities like placing temporary walls, giving allies extra block stacks, or applying hexes on enemies. Some can get pretty busted quickly, like Arthur, who can do auto damage and it scales up with the amount of mana he used in the chapter, allowing him to quickly one-shot units with solid health pools. The classes themselves are pretty varied and the weapons they use to the role they play on the battlefield. However, it is clear that the developers need a bit more time either QA testing or learn how to balance things properly. A handful of classes are significantly worse compared to others, and a few are light years ahead of the others. Personally, I found the Galleon to be way too broken, highlighted by Gwyn and Benji being my all-stars. In fact, Gwyn nabbed pretty much every single MVP possible in my playthrough. The class does too much damage, takes no damage at all, and has an insanely high crit rate. This imbalance becomes pretty distracting and it takes away from the story when a big evil can't even begin to dream of hitting most of my units. A few patches have even came out since the game's release, and none of them have seemed to address this issue of balance. Other aspects of battles are well rounded, like different tiles giving buffs and debuffs is nice, or unit placement would be theoretically tricky to tackle if the difficulty was up to snuff once again. All in all, the pure gameplay is a great time that just happens to be betrayed by the balance and difficulty. Let's see if the story and writing can avenge it. Typically, the story in a strategy RPG is left as second thought. Most of the time, it's generic and basic. Since Dark Deity 2 takes inspiration from Fire Emblem, it's only fair to compare them. While there are a few standout stories in Fire Emblem, like Genealogy of the Holy War and Three Houses, others come woefully short, like Engage and Fates. It should be noted that Dark Deity 1 really struggled in this department. Dark Deity 2, however, does make substantial strides in the story and writing department, but unfortunately still falls short. It's not a bad story per se, it just happens to be the weakest part of the experience and something I immediately noticed right away. First off, while this game is a direct sequel to Dark Deity 1, you can still start with Dark Deity 2 with little to no confusion. This game follows Irving's children and their companions, Irving being the first game's protagonist. Unfortunately, the game very quickly slumps into a rigid formula structure-wise. The group completes a mission or a few, reports back to Irving in which a life lesson or teaching moment happens, then they are sent onwards to their next quest, rinse and repeat. The quests that the group are sent on are pretty interesting, from helping the Feywild deal with inner tension amongst each other to dealing with a giant sea monster that's affecting trade and ship mobility. Next, I found the quality and dialogue to vary from decent to, that was cringe. They try and shoot for the typical witty one-liner in hero movies you see, and at times it just doesn't land well, and sometimes it's done during a tense moment, and it takes the emotional wind out of the story's sails.
Whenever you're ready to stop being so selfish, we'll be here, yeah?
It's not a total buzzkill, however, and there are a few points here that made me laugh.
Reardon, he has to hold back. He's too powerful.
I see you three wasted no time getting deep in your cups.
The greatest highlight by far is the excellent cast, who even do a bit of a carrying job as they fill their characters to the brim with charm and emotion, further elevated by the excellent voice acting, most notably from Gwyn's VA Elizabeth Maxwell and Valeria's VA Cottontail. In fact, I'm willing to fully argue that Gwyn is the brightest spot in terms of the story and writing overall. Her demeanor but passion and care for the others rides a fine line, struggling to find a balance as a leader. That's not to say the other characters are bad, in fact they do great in layering the moments with actual personality and emotion. Little banter back and forth with heartfelt moments between the cast makes what is a weak story at least somewhat enjoyable to play through. Specifically of note, the dynamic between characters gets highlighted during a chapter where a few party members have to face their biggest fears realized in front of them.
You look just like... Who are you? An old question. One I've asked myself many times. Who am I? I'm not the only one.
It was easily for me the most strongest and powerful moment in the story, as it shows you the dynamic these characters have internally. Alongside that, there's an interesting design choice Dark Deity 2 does. During select chapters, you'll have to make a decision on what to do next. The first major decision in the game, which happens pretty quickly surprisingly, was when I had to choose who to help defend and who to leave to fend for themselves. These decisions not only impact the incoming chapter you play, but also give you gold and different items like upgraded elixirs, gems, and weapons. Dark Deity 2 focuses on the journey's decisions rather than the destination being changed. It's a smart approach, but I hope in a possible third game we get to see the storyboard fully spread out its wings. The world building is an okay aspect of the game, and the setting is decent, but unfortunately not much gets truly fleshed out. And it's here I think side quests could have helped big time to fill in the gaps. It's a bit odd that you don't get to learn much about the world or little bits about locations or the history of anything really. Overall, the story, while an improvement upon the first game, still struggles a bit all around to be highly impactful, though the strong voice acting and dynamic between the cast does a lot to keep a player hooked. It's now time to see if the presentation of it all is up to snuff. Something that jumped out to me was the heartfelt pixel art style Dark Deity 2 strives for, and it blends well with the actual art sprites. It quite honestly nails the GBA feel spot on while marking its own spin. The non-pixel art, while simplistic, is clean and well presented. The character designs and actual sprites of them are wonderful, and nothing seems out of place here. There's even different sprites depending on the situation and emotion they are feeling. The art used for backdrops or the map fit pretty well too. While it's nothing earth-shattering, it's serviceable. It's a nice, well-balanced approach that isn't jarring to look at. What is a bit jarring is the seemingly low-res UI that is kind of distracting whenever text is on the screen. Everything's jagged and unsmooth, like they placed an N64 texture over the UI at the last minute to make it feel retro, which is odd considering almost every other aspect of the UI fits in and isn't out of place. The only other thing that was odd UI-wise, personally, was the in-between chapter setups. In order to find a certain menu, it feels clunky having to jump to different tabs and subtabs in those tabs in order to find the thing I wanted to deal with. It's not ultra frustrating, just a tad annoying. I think one individually collapsed tab section individually separated would have been nice. Otherwise, it's solid enough. The audio department was a delightful surprise. Personally, I found that usually indie games try to be a tad too bit quirky with the sound design, with only a few actually prevailing. However, Dark Deity 2 does a good job with its sounds, riding a fine line between realistic and stylish. From the flare of magic to the swinging of swords and the drawback of arrows, it all sounds great. As previously mentioned, the voice acting is surprisingly good for an indie game, and I think it even beats out some AAA releases. Some lines, despite the lackful writing, are delivered with near-perfect tone and emotion, fitting the character well. Music is probably the most disappointing aspect here. I don't remember a single track here, and especially when compared to Fire Emblem titles, it falls woefully short, and it doesn't stick with you at all. Just take a listen for yourself. Otherwise, the overall presentation and sound design is good, but definitely has room for potential improvements across the board. Now it's time to score the game as a complete package. Let's talk about value. This game lasts about 30 plus hours, and for a price tag of $25, that's an easy sell. What's even sweeter is that they put the game on sale for $20 before and during launch. I've even seen it on sale afterwards. There's definitely room for additional playthroughs, especially if you want to explore different choices and character builds, but it's not something that demands multiple replays like a Fallout New Vegas or Fire Emblem Three Houses to see different perspectives or quest lines. If you're looking for a solid one-and-done tactical RPG experience, this absolutely delivers. However, it could benefit from additional incentives to really boost its replay value. Once you've played through the game, you've pretty much gotten the full experience. At the end of the day, Dark Deity 2 is a game that understands what makes tactical RPGs fun. It takes the best aspects of its predecessor and refines them into a polished, engaging experience. That experience that Dark Deity 2 offers was fulfilling to say the least. Playing the game was a highlight of some of my days. The strategy aspect of controlling units on the battlefield was satisfying as always. The unique chapters with side objectives or interesting mechanics like weapon enchanting or map effects were awesome to navigate. Listening to the characters and making choices in the moment had me hooked. My final score for Dark Deity 2 is an easy 7 out of 10. A good game. It also earns a recommendation to fans of strategy games or those looking to get into the genre. If the game were to tighten up those balance issues, offer a better story and dialogue, or add side quests or improve the lackluster music, it easily could have landed an 8 out of 10. That being said, what it does extremely well. It's a simple but fun game, one that both newcomers and veterans can enjoy. However, in order for them to get a 9 out of 10 or the legendary 10 out of 10 from me, they have got to do something above and beyond. Something that's not only unique but also innovative in the strategy genre. While this is an excellent tactical RPG, it doesn't quite push the genre into new territory, something that I think is wide opening for the taking. I have no doubts in my mind that this team can achieve that score in the future. Overall, it was an endearing surprise to see an indie developer take another swing and strive to make improvements despite their first game receiving middling reviews at best and even some pretty low-ball scores. It shows that they are passionate about their games and vision, willing to learn and grow from their shortcomings. I would argue frankly that Dark Deity 2 is a living showcase of that. It was genuinely fun to play, and even their flaws show potential to become one of the best strategy developers in due time. If the developers are watching, please keep going. I wouldn't mind more modern strategy games at my disposal. I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more reviews, click on the Arcadia Archive/reviews playlist, and let me know what you thought of the video and what you wish to see next. I've been Satori Rave, and enjoy your day.